All right, so let's get started here. Today, we are talking about the difference between love and an activated attachment system. So this is one of the things that can really keep us stuck in the cycle of toxic relationships. If you're not familiar with attachment theory, I strongly recommend you do some research on it to learn more about it. A really great book that I absolutely adored was the book Attached. I believe it's by, I can't think of the author's names now, but what I'll do is I'll put it in the comments. I'll put a link to the book in the comments so you guys can check that book out. But I highly recommend learning about attachment styles because when you learn your attachment style, it makes a lot of sense as far as the kinds of experiences you've been having in dating and relationships. So I can share with you what my attachment style was. So I related to being someone who had an anxious attachment style. And please let me know in the comments if what type of attachment style you relate to. Let me know if you related to anxious or avoidant. There's two primarily insecure attachment types, which are anxious and avoidant. And there's also secure. So at this point now, I consider myself an earned secure, meaning I was anxious, but I've done all the work and I'm now in a secure, healthy relationship. So I've earned that secure attachment through the work. But really, for anyone that's new here to attachment theory, attachment patterns are ways we experience relationships based on the experiences that we've had with our caregivers when we were young. So, if our caregivers responded to our needs consistently and reliably, we will most likely end up with a secure attachment. We grew up with the belief that people will respond to us. They will meet our needs most of the time. That's what secure attachment is. So, if we relate to having an anxious attachment style, when we were younger, our caregivers may not have been meeting our needs consistently or even at all. The avoidant attachment style also has a similar experience with caregivers not being able to meet their needs. It's a little bit interesting to me what makes someone go to that anxious style versus the avoidant style. They are talking about how some of it might have to do with genetics. All of this stuff is a theory at this point. Nothing is proven. We don't have any concrete evidence as far as these ideas go, but if you read into it, a lot of it does make sense here. So Cassie was saying, yeah, historically I was anxiously attached. Developing earned secure attachment. Yes. So this is what we want to go for here. We will most likely carry a lot of these tendencies throughout our lives. So for example, if we had an anxious attachment, those tendencies will continue even in that earned secure attachment, but the goal is to get to the point where it's not such a huge issue for us. We feel enough of that security, that safety, where it feels pretty secure, even if we still have some of those anxious tendencies happening. So I'm going to just go through here some of the things. I'm going to be talking mainly about anxious attachment today because that's the main type of insecure attachment that can get very activated and mistake that activation for love. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. But I also want to know if you guys if you relate to more of an avoidant attachment style, please let me know and I will talk more about that and some of the challenges that style might have. And I do also want to say, my attachment style has not been set in stone throughout my life. I have gone through periods where I've been a little bit more avoidant, and I've talked about this in some of my other videos, especially when I was a child. I had a more avoidant attachment. So these can kind of fluctuate. They're not set in stone, and that's the main thing to take away from today. These attachment styles can shift as you change, as you heal, as you grow. So some of the things that relate to an anxious attachment style, if you're not sure that this might be you, one of the things that characterizes an anxious attachment style is being constantly on guard for signs of rejection and abandonment, because most likely you experienced rejection and abandonment in your past, so that trauma leaves you always on guard and looking for it, and even becoming highly attuned to signs in other people that they may be abandoning you or rejecting you. That's one of the things. Another thing that characterizes an anxious attachment style is feeling like it's difficult for us to express our needs in relationships. There's so much fear of rejection and abandonment that it feels like, gosh, if I express what I want, if I share what my needs are, this person's going to leave me. So that's another thing that happens. We can also, if we have an anxious attachment style, we can tend to put our partners up on a pedestal and see them as, more like smarter than we are, maybe just better than we are in general. Maybe they're more attractive than we are. Not that they objectively are, but we think that in our minds. We can tend to overvalue our partners and devalue ourselves. So that's another thing that happens. Also, we can be so tempted to stay in relationships even if we're unhappy, because we don't want to lose some of the good things that are there. So for example, even if this is like a toxic relationship and an abusive relationship, we'll still hold on because occasionally it's good, right? Or like sometimes we have good moments, we laugh a lot and it's really great. So we're afraid to let go of a relationship because we can sometimes only focus on those good things. So these are all characteristics of someone who is anxiously attached. And again, this is mostly what I'm talking about today when I'm talking about an activated attachment system. But please, like I said before, let me know if you are experiencing more of an avoidance style. I will talk more about that in the future. But the most important thing that anxiously attached people experience is mistaking love for an activated attachment system. So I want to go into this. What exactly does this mean? I'm gonna, like in my post that I talked about, I painted a picture for you. So I'm gonna go really in depth into it today. And please let me know as I'm going through this if you can relate to this, if you've experienced this, because I know I have it. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my own experience and my own story too. So how this plays out in the dating and relationship world. Let's say you've just started dating someone, things are looking good, you like them, they seem to like you, they're into you, you've gone out on a couple dates, and then all of a sudden they pull away. Maybe they don't message you as frequently, maybe they're taking, instead of like a couple hours to respond, they're taking days now. Maybe they've planned a date with you and then they cancel the date. Essentially what's happening is they're starting to give you mixed signals. And for someone who's an anxiously attached person, this is really uncomfortable. This is really, really not fun because it kicks up that abandonment stuff, that fear of being rejected, of being abandoned, of being left. And so what happens is you start to get anxious. Maybe this person used to call you every day and then they're not calling you every day. They're maybe only calling you like every couple days. Whatever is going on, there's some sort of shift in the pattern of what you've been experiencing in the relationship. So you're sitting there and you're like, oh gosh, like what's going to happen? Does this person like me? I don't know. All this anxiety is going on, right? And then this person does call you back. They start messaging you again. Maybe they call you to plan a date again and you're like, oh, thank God. Okay. All right, this person's still here, and you get that sense of relief. You feel that peace, like your nervous system starts to settle down and you feel good again, right? You feel happy, you start to feel maybe some loving feelings, some really warm, affectionate feelings towards this person. Maybe they start telling you how awesome you are. Maybe they even start telling you that they love you because you've been in that situation long enough where that starts to happen and you start to feel those loving feelings. But then the mixed signals start again. They back away again. They don't call you as often again. This happens very often in the anxious avoidant pattern. So if you're an anxious person, this can happen very often when you're dating someone who's more avoidant. And I'm actually going to talk about that, the anxious avoidant trap, in a future live training. Let me know if you guys would be interested in hearing about that. I'm pretty sure that that's another topic that I'm going to talk about. But so you're experiencing these mixed signals, and then again, your anxiety gets kicked up again. That fear gets kicked up again, mixed with the loving feelings that you felt towards this person. And so if you've experienced this enough, this dynamic where this person is being hot and cold, they have mixed signals, they're coming one day, they're leaving the next, you start to associate these feelings, the loving feelings, but also the feelings of fear and anxiety, you start to associate that with love. And this is where the confusion happens. And this is where the confusion has happened for me in the past. And I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to share a little bit more about my story in a second here. But we experience these roller coaster emotions, these ultra high highs, these low lows with what love actually is. When in fact, this isn't love. This is our attachment system, our anxious attachment system being activated. All of that fear, all of that anxiety, it puts us in this heightened state, which mixed with those loving feelings can feel pretty awesome at times. And I'm laughing because I've been there, and it's such a powerful emotional state, and it truly convinced me that what I was experiencing was love. It's a very, very deep force. It's a deep feeling. It can feel, so if you are wondering if this is what you're experiencing right now, if it feels like it's a very deep longing for this other person, it's probably an activated attachment system. I'm going to go more into that later. But love doesn't feel like that. Real love feels like the person is there. They're available to you. You don't have to pine for them. You don't have to long for them. So these hot and cold dynamics, they elicit some really, really powerful emotions deep within us. And they're so overwhelming that it can feel like, oh my God, I have met my soulmate. I have met this person who makes me feel like I've never felt before, right? Let me know if you guys have experienced this. If you've felt this with someone and it's like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is amazing. And then, even after we've left a relationship that we knew wasn't good for us, it was a toxic relationship, it was abusive, it just wasn't healthy, this person was emotionally unavailable, it can still feel like, oh my gosh, this is the deepest love that I've ever felt for someone. And I'm sharing this with you because this was something that I learned along my healing journey. I experienced this activated attachment in pretty much most of my relationships, and I was thoroughly convinced that this was love because this is pretty much what I knew. It was triggering some of the experiences that I had from my childhood, and it was familiar. It was what I knew was love. So when I was on my healing journey, I started to dig into this attachment information, and I had this moment where I was thinking about an ex that I had that I still felt like there was this emotional connection to. I was trying to let go of them. I've done so much healing work, but I was like, what? I can't cut this final cord. Like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what to do about it. And I was reading about an activated attachment system. And so I did the thing that I'm going to tell you guys, which is I thought to myself, okay, is what I'm feeling, what is this actual emotion here? So I'm feeling this something for this person. What is it? Am I actually feeling feelings of warmth, of safety, of happiness? And I checked and I realized, no, actually, I wasn't. I was actually feeling anxiety and pain and longing. And something just happened within me when I realized, oh my gosh, this isn't actually love. I had this moment where the bubble just popped, and the rest of that emotional connection that I felt to this ex just completely dissolved. It was this powerful aha moment that I had that did then completely release that connection that I had to this ex. Now, I know that this isn't going to be how it is for everyone. I had done a ton of healing to get to that point, but that realization was that powerful for me, because I realized that what I thought was love, all of these powerful emotions, it wasn't actually real, true love. So let's talk about this now, because I want to share what I learned with you guys and how you can actually tell the difference if you're going through this now, whether you're in a relationship or you've broken up with someone and you're still feeling like, I can't get over this person. So when you think about your ex or this person that you're with, do you feel a sense of warmth? And warmth, when I say warmth, what I mean is like a sense of warmth in your heart area. It can feel like a heat. It can feel like a very safe, warm feeling. Do you feel that? Do you feel a sense of calm, a sense of safety, like you can take a deep breath, like a sense of peace when you think about this person? Do you feel happiness when you think about this person? They just make you smile, and you feel good when you think about them. That's love. That's when you know that it is real love that you're experiencing. If when you think about this person, whether they're your current partner or your ex, and you feel some of those loving feelings, but they're mixed with intense anxiety, or when you think of this person, you feel a sense of longing, like you can't have them, like they're so far away, you can't ever reach them. That's longing. Or do you feel pain when you think about this person? If you are the latter, if you're experiencing the latter, all of that anxiety, that pain, that longing, that isn't real love. That's your attachment wounds being activated. And like I said, it feels very much like love, but that's the difference here. And yes, if you have an activated attachment system, there can be some loving feelings mixed in there, and that's where we get very confused. But if that's the main feeling that you're feeling when you're with a partner or an ex, it's a very clear indication that it isn't real love that you're actually experiencing. So I'm curious, please let me know in the comments if you feel comfortable doing so. When you do this little test, this little check, what were the results for you? Is it real love, or is it an activated attachment system? I'm really curious to know. So here's a good question. I'm going to answer this right now. Chelsea said, isn't your attachment system also activated when it really is love? That is a great question. So Chelsea, when I'm talking about an activated attachment system, what I mean is activated in an unhealthy way. I'm basically saying you're being triggered. You're being constantly triggered by this other person. When you're in a healthy relationship, you are most definitely attached, but I wouldn't define that as being activated. So I hope that kind of clears that up. So yeah, Noah here is saying, yeah, activated attachment system and love. So Noah, do you mean these are two different relationships, or this is the same relationship? I'm curious. So love feels calm. It feels safe. It feels stable. Now, this doesn't mean that when you're in a healthy relationship, you're never going to experience pain or anxiety. No, it just means the overall tone of the relationship is one of happiness and safety and security and warmth. And if you're not experiencing that, it's most likely not a healthy relationship for you. So like I said, when I first learned this, it totally blew my mind. I had a major aha moment, and that attachment that I had for my ex, it totally fell away. Thank goodness, right? But yeah, so let me go through some of your questions here, and then I'm going to keep going and talk. I'm going to talk next about, so what do we do about this activated attachment system? So let's see here. Yeah, a lot of people have been experiencing an anxious attachment. Yep. Okay. Yep. Okay, anxious attachment system. So a question here from Laura is, well, what if it's very new and only a few dates in, and they don't text for days at a time from the very beginning? Is that normal, or am I just anxious? Great question. So Laura, it is very normal that people can sometimes take a few days to respond to your text. What you have to ask yourself is this okay with me? Is this the level of communication that I'm looking for in a relationship? And when it's very new, I tend to give people a little bit more leeway because we're not official yet. Maybe we're dating other people. But once you do start to get into a committed relationship where you've decided, yeah, we're going to be exclusive, we're going to be boyfriend, girlfriend, it's up to us to communicate what our boundaries are and what we would like as far as communication goes. And give that person the opportunity to either meet those expectations or say, no, you know what, that's not me, I can't do it. And then you're not a match. But yeah, in the beginning, if it's only been a couple dates, I would say that is very normal. Yes, it's going to trigger our anxiety. But like I said, once we get into that committed relationship, we have to communicate what we're looking for and what is acceptable for us. And if communicating every few days is not acceptable, then you guys wouldn't be compatible. So Laura, I hope that answers your question here. Oh, Danielle is saying, for the first time, mine is real love. He feels like home. Awesome. I love it. Okay. Cassie's saying, with my ex, it was definitely an activated attachment system. Yeah. Chelsea's saying, I feel sad because when you say love feels safe, that doesn't feel like it's been my experience so far. Thinking about my family also. Yes, Chelsea, when we're doing this healing work and we're going on a healing journey, it can be painful to realize that what we experienced in the past wasn't actually healthy love, or what I call real love. It's something that we sometimes have to grieve. And I'm going to talk about, some of the things that we can do to move through this. But yeah, it was the same for me. When now that I'm in a much healthier relationship and I looked back on what I had allowed in my past and the choices that I had made, I had to do some grieving. It was sad to see that, yeah, you know what? I actually didn't get to experience truly healthy, loving relationships. I had some experiences of them in my past, but yeah, it can be sad to see that. And so I feel for you here, and I get it. Not all of us are lucky enough to be born into a family system where there is a lot of genuine warmth and affection. And it's tough to come to terms with that sometimes. The good news is, though, we can make different choices. We can heal and create healthier relationships. And that's what I want for all of you guys here. That's why I do this. That's why I come on these lives every week. That's why I do my coaching program, because I want to help all of you go on that journey from unhealthy relationships that really aren't that loving and fulfilling into relationships where you do feel truly safe and happy, and you feel that sense of warmth, because you all deserve that. And I know there might be times where you don't feel that in the moment, but every one of you deserves that. So thank you guys for the questions, and keep them coming. I love to answer your questions on the live. Let me take a sip of water here. So if you relate to experiencing an activated attachment system, what do you do with it? So this is where a lot of women come to me, and this is really the work that I do in my coaching program. really what we have to do in order to break free from an ex, I'm going to talk about this in terms of an ex here, because if you are in a relationship where you're constantly being activated, you're constantly being triggered, this isn't a healthy relationship for you. And so I do recommend leaving, unless you are in the rare circumstance where your partner is willing to do their own healing work and to work with you together to create a healthier relationship. Couples therapy will probably have to be involved. Both of you will probably have to do your own healing work. Then it is possible to shift this. But if that's not happening, if you're the only one that's really willing to go there and do that work, and you're constantly being activated, then yeah, this isn't a healthy relationship. So I'm going to talk about this in terms of how to recover from a relationship like that where you're still feeling like you're longing for your ex, like this was the deepest, truest love you have ever experienced, and you're struggling to move on. So what do we do here? And by the way, what this looks like is constant rumination about your ex, feeling like you're just stuck and you can't move forward no matter what you've done. Like maybe you've even done therapy, you have read a lot of books, you've taken courses, and you're still feeling like you have this deep, abiding love for your ex that you can't let go of. So what this looks like is we get to the root of the attachment wound. So that means we dive deep into your subconscious and we go back to where all this stuff started. For example, maybe at age 3, you were physically abandoned for a few minutes. Like maybe your mom left you by accident for a couple minutes. She came right back, but it freaked you out. And that was a trigger for this anxious attachment system. So this is the work that I do in my program. I use some very, very powerful subconscious healing modalities to get in there and actually release that original emotional energy. Because a lot of times we can go to therapy and we can talk about it on a conscious level, or we can read about these patterns and consciously understand them, but that emotional energy is what fuels these patterns. And as long as that emotional energy is sitting down there in your subconscious, not being released, not being processed, you're going to be like continuously drawn to these types that trigger you because it feels so much like love. It's a very, very powerful force, a very powerful pull that's going to keep you stuck in this cycle of wanting this person who isn't healthy for you. So we go right in there and we release these emotions, and that's what helps to break the cycle. We release all of this subconscious emotional energy, and that's what helps you break free from that longing. Because what's happening deep down in the subconscious is we feel a sense of lack, a lack of safety, a lack of comfort, a lack of attention. And so those wounds are sitting there, and some person comes in who gives intermittent attention and affection, and it feels like glue. And so when we release the wounds, when we heal the wounds, that glue unravels, that bond unravels. So another thing that we can do that will help us to not have so much of an anxious attachment system is to look at the beliefs that we have that are driving some of those emotions. So for example, some of the anxious attachment beliefs could be, everyone always leaves me. I'm not good enough. No one ever loves me. These are some of the beliefs that drive those feelings of like insecurity and like I always need to be on guard because everyone always leaves me. So what I do that helps to shift this is I use another powerful subconscious modality to dive deep into the subconscious again and address those specific beliefs that are fueling that anxious attachment system. So I hope this makes sense to you guys so far. There's two main things that drive this anxious attachment. It's the suppressed emotional energies from your past trauma, and it's also the beliefs that you have deep down that you may not even realize that you have about love and about relationships. So when you address those two things, that anxious attachment, it starts to calm down. And you can then enter into more secure, earned secure relationships. So another one that often comes up is I can't trust anyone. Let's see. What else comes up? And let me know if you guys have one that you know you're carrying around that fuels your anxious attachment style. Because there's so many that could be going on, but these are some of the most common ones. And so once you start to release those, it's so much easier to set boundaries for yourself because you start to truly, truly believe that you deserve to be treated better than some of these relationships where people just show up some of the time, but not all of the time. And you're able to let go of that ex who is just consuming your thoughts day and night and make room for someone who can be much healthier for you. So yeah, Cassie's saying one of my big ones was I'm unworthy. Yes, that's another big one that happens for a lot of people. I don't deserve real love. So I'm going to settle for these sporadic crumbs here that come my way because this is all I'm worthy of. Yeah, thank you, Cassie. So ladies, if you are interested in working with me, this is some of the work that I do in my coaching program. It's just one part of it. We do a lot. We also walk you through the dating process to make sure you're not settling for someone who's giving you the mixed signals. And that's also one of the things I do. But if you're interested in this work, please reach out to me. You can comment here, Living Free, Finding Love, and you can also send me a private message. If you comment here, I'll reach out to you. So that's what I wanted to share with you all today. Let me know if you have any other questions or comments about this activated attachment system versus real love. Someone in one of my posts said that they asked me, is this just like a trauma bond? Yes, it is. This is exactly what a trauma bond is. This is a different way of explaining it, but this is pretty much it. Trauma bonds are very common in people who have a more anxious attachment style because of those particular abandonment wounds and fears that they're not worthy of love or that everyone always leaves them. So yes, to answer that question, yes, this is very much like a trauma bond. Someone also said that this is very similar to the rat experiment, the intermittent reinforcement. I talked about that in my Love versus Addiction live. It is also exactly the same. It's just, it's a different way of explaining these dynamics of what keep us in toxic relationships. And they are very, very powerful indeed. So I highly recommend getting as much professional support as you can and really consider trying some of these alternative modalities that I've talked about, this subconscious stuff, because this attachment stuff is so deep. It's very difficult to just come at it from a conscious level, like just from talk therapy or just from reading books or just from taking courses. It really requires getting deep, deep into your subconscious in order to truly, truly shift these patterns. Okay, ladies, I'm going to just leave it here for a moment in case anyone is writing a question or a comment now. But what I would also like to know, moving forward, what are some of the topics that you're interested in learning more about? Because I'm here to help you. I want to know what you want to learn more about. Are you struggling to let go of an ex? Are you struggling with dating and trying to meet someone after experiencing a toxic relationship? Are you in a relationship now and you're trying to figure out how to make it as healthy as possible? So if you think of something that you want me to talk about or discuss, please let me know in the comments and I will come up with a live training for that. So Cassie is saying, in hindsight, I think my anxious attachment was trying to get me out of the relationship with my abusive ex because it was so unsafe. Does that make sense? Yes. So Cassie, do you mean like it was just so, like it was so triggering that your anxious attachment was like, warning, 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 this is not it? So let me know if that's what you mean here. But I think I do understand. So Angela's saying, How did you personally conquer your past anxious attachments? Angela, great question. So pretty much everything that I have put into my program, my Living Free Finding Love program that I talked about here in the live today, that's what helped me to get to this place of earned secure attachment. So I did a couple things. I got professional support. I got a mentor because there were a lot of blind spots that I could not see. And that's why they call them blind spots, because you don't even know they're there. But an outside professional was able to see them and was able to then help me to shift some of those and shift some of the ways I was thinking about relationships and going about making relationship choices. So that was the first thing. The second thing was I did that deep energy healing work. I dove deep into my subconscious and I worked with someone. I did a little bit on myself because I am a practitioner myself, but in order to truly shift your own stuff, I highly recommend working with someone else. So I had someone else work on me and release all of those energies that were fueling that anxious attachment, that were making me like constantly on guard and making it difficult for me to set boundaries in relationships. So I did that. And then the third thing was I worked on shifting some of those deeper beliefs. I had a ton of beliefs. I had a ton of beliefs that like I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't deserving of love, that people always are going to leave me. So I dove deep in there and really did the work to shift those beliefs. So all of those things were what enabled me to get into a healthier relationship. And so that's everything that I put into my program. Basically, I created a program based on everything that helped me. And so that's what I use with my clients now, and it's been very successful. So yeah, Cassie is saying, yeah, my anxiety was so high constantly, it almost felt like my body mind was trying to get my attention and get me out. Yeah. So if you're in tune with your attachment system and you're good at listening to your body and you're good at listening to when those signals are coming through, that's exactly what it is. Your attachment system is saying, this is not good. This is not good. But at the same time, you have these other powerful addictive forces that are happening in your brain, like I talked about with the intermittent reinforcement. So yes, that makes sense, Cassie. It's like your anxious system is like, holy cow, this is not a good relationship. I'm constantly being triggered. And at the same time, we're our brain, since it's wired to be, or I shouldn't say wired, but intermittent reinforcement is a very, very addictive component to that relationship. So it's like you have these two things going on at the same time, and it's really difficult. It's really difficult. But yeah, that makes sense. All right, ladies, I don't see any other questions. Thank you so much for participating in this live today. Please let me know if you have any other topics that you want me to address, and I will talk to you soon. All right, see you next week.